All right, so they did the campfire chat today. I think Rex did a really good job of summing it up, so I'm going to cheat off his homework a little bit while he explains what they talked about. I will give a little bit of my feedback because there was a couple things that they touched on that I feel like I talked about in my one of my previous videos.
If I'm being honest. Okay, so it started off by them apologizing for the patch. And they said
Which is
they
great.
agree that after the patch, the game is just not fun. Okay, so the first thing about having a problem is admitting you have a problem, and that's exactly right. It's really not that fun. They committed to never releasing a patch like this again. And
Well,
then they went to explain what they meant by that.
we'll
They said
see
this
if
patch was essentially massive nerfs trying to, set up the future of
I don't
Diablo
think they
4
intended
without giving us
to
any
release this patch,
compensation
so
currently.
chances are they
They
will
said they're not
release
going to
another
do that
patch like
again.
this.
They said part of their internal processes are going to change. Because what their internal process was balance the game, but it didn't have any consideration for how it would feel for the players or the fun that the players would have, which is why the game's not fun. They said that endgame Nightmare Dungeons, the difficulty, especially after all the nerfs, is way too hard. They said doing Nightmare Dungeon 100 is almost impossible for most builds, and that you have to play a very specific niche build in order to get it down, which is true.
It's not even just that. It's that like some of the depending on what build you're playing, some of the aspects are just completely fucking unbearable and you don't want to do those you just don't want to do those. And then others are just completely trivial and it's like, all right, well whatever. I can live with this. But it's interesting when some people talk about their builds and the aspects they don't like in Nightmare Dungeons. It's like completely different than what I don't like when I play a Necro minion build when I go in the Nightmare Dungeons. So, like, yeah, so not only are you battling the extreme difficulty, but you're getting these random ass aspects. Some of them are complete shit, and some of them don't matter altogether, and they really need to get that in line.
So they said currently is a Nightmare Dungeon 70 will be the future Nightmare Dungeon 100. They also said that they're going to release new endgame content to really challenge people in a different way. So if anybody's saying, wow, Nightmare Dungeon 100 was the thing that I really like to push, they're going to bring in new endgame pinnacle content of some kind that's going to help you or
Yeah.
give you something to do. They said that
Yeah, I think they should have kept Greater Rifts, even though like a lot of people don't like it. It's like a system that they've already designed that gives a lot of like stackable, potentially infinite progression. Not really infinite. They can, just cap it based on power creep. But yeah, I think it's something that people probably would have liked to do. Um, Even though some people don't like to do it, so it would have been fun to have it. And then like you can just ignore it if you don't like it.
one of the fun things in ARPGs is getting a really powerful build and then going and destroying a ton of monsters.
Yeah.
And they said, well, the most popular endgame activities currently, Helltide and Nightmare Dungeons, don't really have the kind of density for you to do that. So in some areas of Helltide, they're going to massively buff the density, and they're going to massively buff the density in Nightmare Dungeons. And hopefully that will also fix the XP problem.
The only thing that worries me about that is like if you are walking into an area and suddenly you change like scenes and there's like 50 mobs there and the game lags. Like this actually just happened to me when I was doing the seasonal quest. I walked up to like one of the random ass benches that are in the wild to do the quest, and as it loaded the area, I just disintegrated. I was dead before I could even like react. As soon as it switched the scene, I was on the floor dead. Thankfully, the respawn was like right there, but that's really annoying and something that would really suck on hardcore. So that's the only thing that I think could be problematic if they drastically increase the amount of mobs that are in the open world. At least for people that have worse PCs, it's going to be difficult to deal with.
They said they know sorcerers and barbarians have been hit extremely hard by their patch notes. They're being worked on right now. And I think we're getting some updates in the 1.1 patch for sorcerer.
Just to maybe when they have mobs spawn in and pop in, they could like just be like make it so you can't interact with them for like a certain period of time, like 5 seconds, just enough to give the network and long enough to compensate for their spawning in.
At least they're going to help sorcerers and barbarians come back up. They know that the patch really hit them both. They said that respecking is a problem in the game. Nobody wants to respec because it's too expensive.
I don't think the respecking is too expensive. I haven't tried it in the Paragons. I think it's the re-rolling of gear that gets too expensive over time. That's the more problematic thing. Like you can nuke all of your gold in like 3 rolls and not get anywhere close to the thing you want. That's dog shit. I think the problem with respecking is the fact that you have to do each individual node in the Paragon board, and you can't just wipe the whole thing easily like the skill board.
The cost is going down 40%. They said
But the cost going down is good
because
too.
of their changes, they understand why the whole community thinks that they're trying to slow down the game. They're actually not trying to slow down the game. That is not one of their missions. They realize that the changes that they did slow down the game, so they're going to work on ways to improve it so it doesn't feel that way. That was not one of their goals. So with that in mind, they're going to look for ways to make the leveling 50 to 100 faster, because it's just currently way too hard to get to 100.
It is way too hard.
Finally, for the first
Takes too
time
long.
I've ever seen them publicly, they addressed crowd control. They said that getting crowd controlled all the time is not fun. And they said, especially when they buff the density in Nightmare Dungeons, the crowd control is going to get even worse.
Yep.
Now, here's the thing that I'm not trying to hone in on exactly their wording, but what they said is they're going to improve our tools to deal with crowd control. That is not the solution that I would be looking for.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree, and I talked about this in my last video, the D4 is shit video. Take a look, watch it. If there's still good feedback in there, I believe, if you haven't watched it. But I think they need to work out a system where your armor and your resistances combine to add crowd control, a resistance to crowd control, to overall crowd control. Like something that gets it down to where, like if you take multiple instances of crowd controls, back to back, you get like a brief second of immunity or something. I don't know if that's something they just want to work passively into the game where there's like a second of immunity in between, so they're just not staggering it. But I think it would be more intuitive if they fixed armor for physical damage, resistance for elemental damage, and the combination of your total of armor and resistance applies to crowd control resistance.
I don't want more ways to break CC.
Yeah, I don't want
you to bring CC down.
Yeah, I don't want to have to use unstoppable in my build. Like if that's the case, you're creating the same problem as vulnerable. Everybody needs vulnerable in their build. Everybody needs unstoppable in their build. So you need to tone down the CC so players that are able to dodge and move out of things with, just by skill and using their eyes and moving their character, they can dodge things and, feel good about that. Whereas the people who are not as good at that, they do get caught by a CC, God forbid, they don't hate their life for it, whatever.
As a mechanic, I don't want more ways to
but yeah, those people can use unstoppable if they're constantly getting caught by CC. I played through my entire Necro on the non-seasonal realm without using any form of unstoppable. Sure, I died every once in a while, but not that much. If you're a skilled player, you can avoid CC, 9 times out of 10. But yeah, there's still that scenario where it's like, oh, I can't move because I'm like in this weird thing, and the environment is restricting me from moving out of this fear thing just by a smidge. So it clips you, and then you're feared, and then you're stunned, and then you're slowed, and then you're dazed, and then you're rooted, and it's just like, okay, man. But yeah, 9 times out of 10, it's easy to deal with that shit if you're a skilled player. So having the choice to use Unstoppable is great if you're less skilled and you need that, but you shouldn't be required to use it in every build. That's dog shit.
Horrible CC. I think CC crowd control should be brought down.
Yes.
For example, in this patch, they did fix 2 bugs with Cold Enchanted. Cold Enchanted, I'll actually run it now as an affix. I play on hardcore. I can actually play it without dying. So that more of that. Bring the CC down. Bring the spiders rooting you down. The chain CCs down. I think that's a way better fix than getting more tools. They said they're going to think about bringing loadouts into the game because everyone keeps asking for it. They're working on the leaderboards, but they're not coming till Season 3. People are not going to be happy with that timeline, but it is what it is. They said they're going to look for ways to make Uber Uniques more common and or more ways to get them, probably with those new pinnacle things that they're bringing.
I like that idea. I also like what Asmongold has been talking about, like maybe having them drop from the pinnacle things. I also like the idea of maybe having the pinnacle bosses or having some kind of pinnacle content dungeon that you run that drops you some kind of a currency that maybe you can farm over time. So maybe you can possibly get the drop while farming, but you can also farm the coins. So maybe by the time you get all the coins you need to buy the drop, you got the drop you need, and you can get 2 Uber Uniques, and you can feel like a fucking champion. Yeah, they should do something about that.
They also kind of alluded to, without saying it, like I'm putting words in their mouth, but they essentially alluded to like the Uber campaign bosses are coming. So maybe we're going to be fighting Uber Andariel and Uber Durable soon, and whatever else.
I completely forgot about those bosses because
they said part of the problem from 50 to 100 is not just
I feel urged to skip the story.
Leveling. They said there's not enough milestones.
No,
World Tier
there's
3
not.
and World Tier 4. So they're going to be looking to put in a ton of more milestones so you can have fun and feel like your character is reaching different power levels throughout the process, which goes in with they're going to improve the item progression. And another thing that they said is they understand that playing the game, you get an inventory full of yellows and you have to manually look through everything. And they say that's a huge problem. So they're considering 2 things. They're talking with the UI team about a much faster way to compare items, or they're looking straight up at implementing loot filters, which is the greatest thing that I've heard in a long time.
Yes,
filters. They're working on a group finder. It is coming. They said they're going to look for ways to improve target farming if you're a druid and you need a Tempest Roar. They said that they recognize some monster types are doing way too much damage and one-shotting people. They also said that some of the nightmare...
That is especially a problem for necromancers because it creates the scenario where your minions are dying way too fast. Even when they have the buff that reduces it to like a minimum 30% damage they can take at one time, if they get cleaved by something that has a dot, boom, 30% gone, dot 1, the other 30%, dot 2, the other 30%, dot 3, they're dead. And that's like a 3-second boom, your minion's dead in 3 seconds. For the heal, the big chunky heal from your priest to kick in, it takes 5 seconds. So they need to fix that. Your minions, they created that buff to save your minion's life, but it's like bears, large trees, the big fucking night penitents that do the fucking smash, stuff like that, when that have the big ass cleaves If the cleave is a multi-hit, like 4-hit, boom, they're dead. Or if the cleave has a dot, boom, they're dead. And again, they're dead within a span of 3 seconds, and the heal takes 5 seconds to proc. So they need to get that more in line, at least as a necromancer standpoint, so you're not feeling overly abused by your minions just being dead all the time. But yeah, it sucks when you get hit by it as a player as well, certainly.
Dungeon affixes are killing way more people than others, like way disproportionately.
Yeah, and that's like I said earlier with the aspects. Some Nightmare Dungeon aspects are fucking dog shit and affect people in different ways, and they're just like they really need to get those balanced out. Figure out a way to like maybe just get rid of the ones that are complete fucking dog shit, and take the ones that are like tolerable and leave all them in the game. You know, whatever. Who gives a shit?
Said they have the data, they're going to fix it. They said that some ranged monsters do too much damage, and some classes like sorcerers have too little defense to deal with it.
Necro as well.
They're looking at that and they're going to fix it.
There's wraiths one shot you.
They said they're looking for a way, part of like the stash space that they addressed. They're going to give us another stash tab. And they said another thing is there's too many things in the game that are taking up too much space, like the caged hearts for this season. Like the fact that you have to extract 1 million legendary affixes and keep the legendaries to extract them. They said that that's not fun. One person from chat suggested that if you find a better power, that you can upgrade it on the codex. So once you find a perfect disobedience power, maybe you could extract it into your codex and level up the codex. And they seem to like it. That's actually a pretty
I like that.
idea.
It's like
but they said they're considering that and other.
That's like a pseudo cube scenario. When the cube, you put it into the cube, you could get the max. But yeah, I like this. Like having the ability to upgrade it sounds really cool.
And other options to fix the fact that you don't have 10,000 things in your stash. They said the memory leaks in the PC performance, like those things are always being addressed, but they actually found like 2 or 3 specific bugs that keep causing it that are going to be fixed. They said crafting will be enhanced in the future beyond just upgrading with gold, adding sockets, and just re-rolling one stat. They said that they're buffing goblins. They're going to drop better loot, and they love how D3 has multiple kinds of goblins. So probably,
as I said in the other video, quality of life that they had in Diablo 3, that it doesn't make sense to me why some of these things that they know that people loved, and even they themselves loved from the previous game, they just didn't bring to this game. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
more goblins are coming. Next Friday, we're getting another campfire where they're going to tell us about 1.1.1, which is going to be released a few days after that campfire chat, which is going to address some of the stuff that they talked about. They said there's going to be several more patches before Season 2. So that's a summary of what they talked about. And this is the first time, for the most part, this is the first time that I've seen them just straight up admit, we have a problem. This is what we did wrong. I'm sorry. There wasn't a whole lot of excuses, or I don't know what the right word is. There wasn't a whole lot of
the right word is excuses. No, the right word is excuses. On the previous ones, I pointed it out. There were tons of excuses. There was tons of these defensive scenarios, where, like, they know we have a problem with something. They're like, oh, well, we were doing it because, like, blah, blah, blah. And, like, treating it like, oh, it's not that bad. Whereas in this video, I did watch it in depth, and he's right. They were more explaining the design philosophy and the ideology behind some of the things. Not so much saying, well, like, trying to brush it off as like, well, it's not a big deal. They were more saying, well, like, here's how we were approaching it, and obviously that failed, so we're gonna look for a way to improve it. And I think that's great. They need to. Yeah, and it's funny that it's like the one. It's like the first one that Rod's not on. Rod is constantly making excuses. But yeah, and while I'm on the topic, like Joe Shelley, they are like literally working this man to the bone. Look at him. Like Jesus Christ, man. I just want to say I'm sorry for all the stress and like the negative feedback that you have to endure and all the bullshit and all the hard work you're doing. I do appreciate you. The fans do appreciate you, even if it doesn't seem like it sometimes. Thank you, man. Take care of yourself. I hope you're doing well. But yeah, man, holy shit. Like, I saw this, I was like, God damn, it looks like they are literally working this guy, this poor man, to the bone. Um, but yeah, I think this was a great step above. And one more thing that I'd like to say is I still have the bug where after I dodge, I get frozen, or when I'm channeling decompose, the decompose like goes into the floor and my character gets frozen there as well. Please, please address those bugs. I don't care if you fix them, but at least like I just want to know that you know that those are problems, because I've been having these problems not in the beta since the live game only, and they've never gone away. It's gotten me killed so many times. But yeah, let's get back into the video.
Well, you guys think this is bad, but really did you think about it this way? They didn't really try to twist it very much. They just straight up said, hey, we messed up majorly. I give them major credit for that. That is not an easy thing to do for a company or for a person or anybody to admit.
Yes, credit where due, seriously.
You could tell, like, there were some questions that they asked about certain features, like, they said, like, what about companion druid? And you could tell via their answers that it's not something that they're actually working on right now. They're
stuff
like,
like
okay,
that, yeah, that
druid,
stuff like that doesn't fucking matter in the short term.
A lot of these things they actually have talked about, and they probably have fixes in the works to make it better.
They can address stuff like
I thought that
underperforming builds. They can address with gear over time, so it's whatever. As long as they're not like, if the problem is lack of gear, then add gear. If the problem is the stats are actually, the skills are actually just trash, then address the skills. But I think in a lot of cases, it's the variety of gear, because a lot of the skills feel like trash until you get legendaries. Like, let's be honest. A majority of everything in the game feels kind of like pretty bad until you get legendaries. So just make sure every build has an equal amount of legendaries. Like when I look at Necromancer, there's like fucking 4 corpse explosion legendaries, you know, but there's like there's like 1 corpse tendril one or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, or make the corpse explosion one also apply to corpse tendrils. Like try to even some of the things out, or do more double dipping. And one other thing that I'd like to note on Necro is like all the physical, everything, all the ultimates are physical. There's way too much physical. You need to add like a cold. Like Necro needs more cold aspects, a cold ultimate. Like more things that default to cold and not just physical. Because we do have the cold mages, and that's like the only cold thing you have. And it's like a weird oversight, I think, that yeah, like Necro has like this 1 cold ability and nothing else. And then like all the ultimates are physical. It's really weird.
Topics that they chose for once, like I don't want to insult the past times, but really for once were really actually what everyone was complaining about. Like they actually went to the heart of the problem. And the questions that they took from chat, most of them were incredible. Like actually the problems in the game, rather than Joe Schmo 69420 asks, when can I get more headdresses for my fat witch doctor druid? You know, it's like
Fuck
nobody
that guy.
cares about those questions. They actually asked the questions that matter and answered them. And so I think this campfire chat was a huge step in the right direction.
I
For the game.
agree. I
I
agree,
give them major
Rax.
credit here. Major
Yeah,
credit.
major credit. I agree. Rax did a really good job of summing it up. I did go back and watch it to see if there was anything else that I really wanted to talk about, and I interjected that in the middle in my opinions, like my problems with the bugs. All in all, I mean, the season does feel better to play. There are still obvious glaring issues that at least they're talking about. The leveling from 5100 is trash. If you do happen to see this and you're not a follower of Rax, go and follow him. RaxxANTERAX. I can't link in my descriptions yet. Make sure you watch him. But yeah, he's a good dude. You can catch him on Twitch as well, live streaming. But yeah, he always has good information and good opinions about this game. And I agree. The live, I didn't watch it live. I watched his summary first, and then I went back, like I said, to watch the full thing. And yeah, I think they touched on some important topics. They didn't. They danced around, certain topics in weird ways, like making excuses. It didn't feel awkward. It was good. It was reassuring. But only time will tell from here. Hopefully, good things happen. Peace out, everyone.